Okay. I have a thing to talk about. And it's one of those things that is meant to be good, but it really actually makes me kind of angry. Because it speaks to some of the other problems we have right now. But now that I've just let both the dogs out, and we have 2 hours left of this subathon, let's go ahead and get into the next topic at hand, which is about a kindergartner who used a lot of ingenuity, and this gets spun in a way that makes me very angry. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and get into the fan art section. Bonbonberry has submitted a Slavic Suris model, which I do have access to, but I haven't paid for it or anything. Thank you very much, Bonbon, for putting me in embarrassing outfits all the time. Even though this is probably the least embarrassing of the outfits you've thrown my model into. With that said, if you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's go ahead and roll the intro. Okay. So, yeah, the new V-Road uses black panties. Oh, the new one uses black? See, that's funny, because my witch model has black specifically so that it's different. Not that anybody's going to ever see that. But I'm going to read this article out to you, and you tell me what you see wrong with it. From CBS News, diabetic kindergartner selling pumpkins to raise money for service dog. Seems really cool. Seems really uplifting. It's an older article, but it's a copy-paste from 1,000 other feel-good stories we've heard before. I'll go through the article. I'll tell you what's wrong with it here in a bit, if you don't already know, if you haven't already figured that out. But a 6-year-old Michigan boy with type 1 diabetes wanted a service dog so he could ride the school bus and visit friends. Instead of asking his parents to buy him a pup, he started selling pumpkins that he grew, and now his parents say he's already sold out of them. Ian Unger from Sand Lake, Michigan began kindergarten this year and was in kindergarten readiness last year, but has never been able to ride to school with other kids his age. His mom, Katarina Christensen, told CBS News this. Ian requires constant supervision to monitor his insulin pump and blood sugar levels, so it's too dangerous for him to be without an aide or someone who is trained in operating the device. Ian's school district nurse recommended Ian get an aide, and the district said Ian could not ride the bus without the supervision this fall, so his parents have been driving him to school every day. The aide does not have to be human. A well-trained diabetic alert dog can accompany Ian to school. The dog can sense blood sugar changes before the blood testing can show it, and the pups also retrieve snacks or things those with diabetes may need if they are in danger. Ian just wanted one of the dogs because he couldn't do things. He knew he couldn't ride the bus. However, the family thought it would take a few years to be able to afford a dog, as they can range up to $25,000. Right. Now we're starting to see some of the issues. Hopefully. If you haven't figured it out yet, we're getting there. So Ian came up with a great idea to raise money. He'd sell pumpkins. Said Ian's pumpkins are ready. They have $5 and $10 sizes. Ian's 5 years old and raising money for a diabetic service alert dog. Okay? He put some pumpkin seeds in the ground and didn't really take care of them, but let me tell you, he grew a lot of pumpkins. Him and his mom counted over 150. Now, you and I are going to do a little bit of math. We're going to pull out a trusty calculator. And when we do this, if we have a median of 7.5 to accommodate for the fact that we have $5 and $10 pumpkins, 7.5 times 150. He can raise 1/25th. 1/25th of what is required for his dog. 1/25th. An astronomically low number. But that's not the actual issue. Let's continue. On September 26, Christensen posted on Facebook announcing that Ian's pumpkins are ready and that her son was raising money for a diabetic alert service dog. The post has now been shared over 700 times. The pumpkins sold out after a matter of weeks, and Unger said that people even began bringing their own pumpkins and giving them to the kindergartner to sell. We had no idea this was going to blow up. In addition to the pumpkin sales, Christensen created a fundraiser on Facebook for her son. So far, they've raised over $21,000 of the stated $20,000 goal. Christensen said Ian hopes for a German Shepherd. He thinks they're cool because the police have them. Unger said that the family will donate any extra money once they purchase the dog. If this takes off, maybe someone else will get one. It could help another child. Okay. I have no ill will towards the person who wrote the article because there's a societal problem here that I'm going to go ahead and point out. Okay? Now, I'm going to compare and contrast the story with the same thing that I've been doing. We had several $1,000s in medical debt that had to be taken care of by doing this subathon. With 2 hours and 8 minutes left of it, I am ready to be at the end of that tunnel. So, what's actually wrong here? Let me reframe the title of this article a little bit. It's going to say the exact same thing in context, but it's going to be worded a little differently so you can see what a little bit of spin can do. If I were to title this article instead, Family Resorts to Child Labor so as to afford medical necessity. Now, if you think that something that allows you to go live a normal fucking life is not a medical necessity, then I don't know what the definition of medical necessity is. For this kid to live a normal life and go out and do things with their friends and grow up and have a childhood, they need a service dog. This is a medical necessity. But because of the absurd price of service dogs, which is half of the problem, and also the fact that these things are apparently not covered under insurance, these are things that should be provided, or at the very least our taxpayer money should be able to go into. Instead, we have children who have to resort to literally a form of child labor so that they can actually afford these things that are required for them. These medical things that are required for them. This isn't, he wanted to buy a PS5 his parents could afford, and so he sold some pumpkins to afford it. No. This is a medically necessary device and or animal was required for them to live a normal, happy, and fulfilled life, and they had to resort to child labor to make it happen. When I word it like that, it sounds absurd. It sounds disgusting, but that's also not an inaccurate description of what happened. As somebody who just had to go through a 16-day stream for the sole purpose of taking care of medical bills, because I would not have done this. The people over on my Patreon can attest to the fact that in the back end conversations, I have been bouncing between the idea of just doing a 24-hour stream as a celebration of hitting 40,000 instead of doing a subathon. But then when the conversation between me and Raz came up about our medical bills, it ended up being more that, no, this needs to be a subathon. I need to do something that is worth people donating whatever amount of money is required for us to handle this. So, me being basically another copy of The Truman Show for about 15 days, 16 going on now, is what I ended up having to do. But the fact that any of us is put in a position where we feel we have to do these things, where we have to be backed into a corner to do things that we really shouldn't have to do. Children should not have to work. They should have the ability to live their childhood with no real issues and then work whenever they are older, because there's plenty of time for that when you're older. They should not be put in situations like that. A streamer should not be put in a situation like I am in. But this is a situation that America is always put in. This is the norm here. Do you want to know the amount of GoFundMes that exist that are dedicated solely to medical debts? It is the majority of them. And unfortunately, the reality is that the majority of those GoFundMes will fail. If you don't think that that is a product of a broken system, then I don't know what to tell you. We are the richest nation in the entire world, and yet somehow, magically, the coffers are not there for us to afford medical debts for people. One of the ways that our country manages to convince people to do things like join its ever-inflating military, as much respect as I do have for those who join the armed forces, I'm from a Navy and Air Force family after all. We have a couple Marines, but, you know. As much as I respect people who do go into the armed forces and do put themselves on the line, regardless of the reason behind it, I can respect the individual without respecting the country that puts them in a position where they have to do that. One of the quickest ways to actually get really, really good healthcare in the United States is by joining the military. Wisconsin had that whole debacle where they're trying to make it to where people who are aged 14 can work until 11 p.m. so that they can fix the failing hotel industry. And yet, we are told repeatedly, we are the richest and greatest nation in the world. So rich and great that we cannot afford to take care of our own, lest it take away from the coffers of others who needed more for whatever reason. This is the article that I had seen most recently. The problem is, for every one of these articles, there's 50 more exactly like it. Some child had some medical necessity that could not be afforded unless they engaged in some kind of exploitation of their personal labor that they should not be having to give at this stage in their life at all. All of these headlines, every single time, they are read as uplifting stories of human ingenuity, when in reality they are actually people pushed to the brink. And even if they don't think that, oh, this is fine, there are people in 1,000 kinds of abusive situations that think that what they're going through right now is fine. But it's not. But it's a short one. This is a short video. I know that it's not something. It's something that everybody's probably considered at some point when they've read one of those uplifting articles and they go, well, actually, is this uplifting or is this actually kind of scary? Which one is it? Every one of I agree with Kurosaka in the chat. Every one of these is not an example of America's exceptionalism in its individual citizens' ingenuity. It is an example of America's failures because people have had to resort to those points. But I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let me know. This is a short one, but I wanted to get my thoughts out there because every time I read one of these articles, it makes me more and more mad, and I haven't actually taken the time to respond to one of them. Now, granted, I do wish this child the best. If you are in a position like that and you are already doing the things that you need to do to try to get out of it, like you don't have a service dog, so you're trying to get one now, then 100% I am behind you in doing that. But I am also behind trying to reform our system in such a way that you don't have to rely on that you don't have to resort to that. So with 2 hours on the clock left on the subathon, let me know what you guys think. As always, everyone, insert end of video tagline here.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. If you want access to behind-the-scenes content for the channel, please consider checking out my Patreon. I do weekly vlogs over there where I give real-life updates to what's going on behind the scenes on the channel, stuff that you don't really get over here and even on Twitch. Patreon also helps the channel's stability a whole lot. Without Patreon, I wouldn't be able to do this at all. Especially with the kind of content that I do, neither YouTube nor Twitch are the most stable sources of income. If you are a $20 and up patron, then you will be featured on the ending slides as shown in the beginning of the end credits. If you want to catch the streams where all this content comes from, then consider heading over to Twitch and following. And if you want to continue watching over here on YouTube, maybe consider clicking one of the end screen videos. And once again, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with me over on my channel. I wouldn't be able to do literally anything that I'm doing over here on YouTube without each and every one of you. So, thank you.